No,
but we stealing though. We gotta think about that, and then we stealing from our own ancestors and our own countries.
well,
Let's
we
talk
have a whole
better.
argument about the ancestor thing because I think that black people should be more upset with Africans than they should be white people.
And I don't even understand his argument that, oh, we're stealing. What about the other countries, though?
You can switch with you if you want. Go ahead.
Sorry, we have time for one more.
Oh, one more. Okay.
Come on, no, we can do half and half.
I'll let them do half and half.
You do have it. Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I want to say first is that I understand what you're trying to say, and I would like it if more Republicans were like you. However, some of the issues and some of your talking points, I feel like you're removing some context. Like even with the whole thing, you talked about Rosa Parks, how, you know, her husband owned a car and all that. That's not the point. They were doing that to protest. Even if you do have a car, there are probably plenty of black people that did.
Did you hear the part that I said that we had our own bus line?
I know, but we shouldn't have that. Because you were talking about how everyone should be together, we should all unify. But if we stay separate, if we keep having black water fountains and white water fountains, white schools and black schools, we'll never have that unity. And even with these people out here, there are gay, trans people all over the place. And then you have like your little people in the background. Oh, only two genders. Like, you're not going to make unity.
We're provoking
I love discussions like this because as you all know, or if you don't know, I'm a college student studying electronic engineering, getting a master's degree right now. And a lot of these people talking are my peers. So I love just learning more about politics and what they think about politics. This young man brought up an interesting point. He's referring back to the civil rights movement where we had our own bus lines, and he talked about Rosa Parks having her own car, and basically a time where black and white people were segregated. I always have a very, this has a very touchy spot in my heart specifically, and I always get a little weary when these conversations are brought up because, and I'm not saying he did this necessarily, but I noticed that people try to have a false equivalency when they bring this stuff up. When people talk about modern racism and civil rights or Jim Crow racism, I always just find it a little strange how, not him directly, but how people try to equate the two. Because during the civil rights movement and Jim Crow movement, there was true racism, like real, it's undeniable racism where we had to have our own bus line. We had to have our own water fountains. We could not mingle with Caucasian people. But so when people try to say, oh yeah, it's like that today, or it's anything like that today, I get a little, I guess, triggered because I'm like, no, it's not. It's not like that today at all. But I'm not saying he did that, but I just hope he doesn't go down that path. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Conversation so people can come to the mic and have a conversation. That's what it is. If we don't have some issues out here for people to know where we stand or to provoke conversation, nobody's going to come and talk. So some of those things is to provoke a conversation. Let me talk about Rosa Parks. There's a difference between natural immigration or migration between the races and forced desegregation. When you force it, you cause animosity and chaos. When you let it be a natural thing, it happens a lot more smoother. In the South, even in places where there was discrimination on the law book, not everybody discriminated against each other. There was black and white people getting together all the time. It was certain places where they held true to those structural things that were Democrats put into place to cause division. I don't think that she should have forced that. I think that black people should have had their own bus line and became competitive, and then therefore they merged. Because that's the problem with our societies. We gave up a lot of our own generational wealth trying to get in the bed with a group of people that didn't really want us at the time. We had resources that we forfeited. We had education systems that we could teach our own history if we wanted to, but we forfeited that to stage this issue that wasn't as prevalent as Martin Luther King and the others made it.
Before he goes too deep, I'm just going to say, I don't know a lot about what he's talking about. I really don't. I'm not going to sit here and try to, debunk it or even agree with it because I don't know if this is true. I do know that we did have our own stuff. I don't know how it disappeared. I've heard stories that it was taken from African Americans. I also heard stories that, like he's saying now, that we forfeited it. I don't know the origin of it. I will say this though, if he is right and we did forfeit it, I do agree with him to an extent, because why would we forfeit our own infrastructures considering that America is the land of ownership? When you own something, over time that appreciates. So in hindsight, it doesn't make sense to forfeit something, but I'm not going to go into too much detail or make a solid statement on whether I agree or disagree. But let's continue.
It wasn't as prevalent. People weren't just killing each other in the Deep South. It was only isolated situations. That's why they traveled to Birmingham. That's why they traveled to hot spots to create chaos, to get us to where? Where did that get Black Americans today? Are we more generationally wealthy than we were then? Is racism stopped? Is discrimination stopped? That stuff didn't do nothing. They tried to push a political agenda to benefit themselves and not really benefit Black people.
Okay, so I guess like to talk about that. It's like even with like what you're saying right now.
Can you move a little closer to the mic so you can have
Yeah, even though like what you're saying right now today, we have all races of people at the same bus. And I understand like it should have been more peaceful, but sometimes you need to put force to get what we need.
I don't disagree with you. I disagree with how it happened, but I don't disagree with you
but
that
it needed to happen. Even if you disagree with me, it needed to happen. Because
I think
even though
naturally,
MLK was peaceful, what happened to him?
No, I think
MLK wasn't as peaceful.
No, I think that we're on the same page. MLK was not violent like we saw in 2020 with people burning down places. That he was not violent. So MLK's approach was way different, which I respect his approach. I think that we should have desegregated. I just think that it should have been a more of a setup where Black people were financially stable before we jumped over into these other people's stuff. That's the only thing. Me and you agree that we should desegregate. Me and you agree that it's great that we can all be on the campus together. We agree on that. I just think we should have let it naturally happen and get the government out of the way than for us to try to force the government to put their hand in it. The people, I don't think would have been segregating themselves. The government mandated Jim Crow laws. That's the government is the problem. And what party initiated that? Democrats. Who still, and Black people, 90-some% still vote for these same people that put in these racist laws in Jim Crow South. So, you know, go ahead. I use your question because I could talk for 3 hours. Go ahead.
just a quick thing regarding the whole like Democrat thing. I understand that, like in the past, Democrats were, you know, linked to the KKK, but really think about it now. Who's wearing these hoods now? People on the far right.
No. What do Democrats do for Black people today?
What does anybody do for Black people?
No. You get it, Matt. You just ask the question on the mic so we can have it on there.
I will try to answer that. The problem with the Democratic Party and African Americans is that the Democratic Party is commonly linked to socialism, meaning in this instance, social programs such as housing or benefits, so on and so forth, more college scholarships, things like that, more socialist ideals. And when you have an economically struggling class of people, and statistically, African Americans are more struggling than other races compared to household wealth, they will naturally side with a more socialist group because they don't have the capital to not do that. So the reason why I brought that up is because the black household tends to think that socialism automatically equals good because the average income benefits under socialism. So to them, it is relatively good. Not saying that's the right thing, but that's what's happening now. I think, and the reason why I think that's problematic is because when you have a group of people who heavily side with the party because of an economic reason or something even similar to an economic reason, that can kind of be a golden handcuff. When you say, oh, I side with this party because of social benefits or because of they look out for me. What Officer Tatum is saying is that we need to get to a point where we don't need the government to look out for us. We shouldn't need social benefits. And I'm not shaming anyone for using social benefits at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that as a culture, it's really problematic when an entire culture depends on social benefits. Like if you have kids and they depend on it, and then your kids' kids, then your kids' kids, that should never be the goal. If you depend on social benefits, that's sometimes life is just life. But you should try to, instill into your children or your children's children to eventually grow out of that or anything along those lines. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
What does anybody do for Black people today?
That's a good question. That's what Black people should be looking into, right? Democrats definitely not doing enough for Black people. You can't name a policy. I'll put money on it today, right now. You can't name a policy that Democrats have done to benefit Black people right now. I could tell you some that they benefit illegals.
But policies are
LGBTQ. I could go down the list.
Policies is nothing but energy. And if we know about basic physics, energy is just a force but forces have to be acted upon for them to move.
So let's go with the
What he said makes no sense. This has nothing to do with basic physics, and I should know. I'm basically studying quantum physics for my undergrad, and I'm studying electronics right now. What he just said was some complete BS. It's not true. It has nothing to do with physics at all. The problem is this. Black people vote for the Democratic Party 90% of the time. If we're voting for anything 90% of the time, there has to be a reason we're doing that. It's kind of different by saying, oh, what does any party do for us? That's a fair question, but it's not as fair as you think, because what other race always votes for a party at 90 or even 80% of the time? We do that in every single election. So what he's saying is, what is up with the Democratic Party that makes us vote for them 90 to 95% of the time in every single election? They have to be doing something for you. We're not switching back and forth. I don't know why he brought up physics. That actually just annoyed me. But let's continue.
Republican Party. What did Donald Trump do when he was in office? He secured funding for HBCUs, which I think was a positive.
Yeah.
He had these zones. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's skipping my mind. Opportunity zones that he initiated. The First Step Act, which I was a part. Me and Candace Owens and others were lobbying Congress, even lobbying against Republicans to get this passed. My uncle got out of prison. He got 40 years fed time for selling dope, and he got out early because of the First Step Act. So these are things that affect the black community, and economic success as a country helps everybody.
But at what cost of other countries, though? You got to think about we stealing.
No,
but we stealing though. We got to think about that, and then we stealing from our own ancestors and our own countries.
Well, we have a whole argument about the ancestor thing, because I think that black people should be more upset with Africans than they should be white people.
And I don't even understand his argument that, oh, we're stealing. What about the other countries, though? Here's the thing. I've noticed a very large trend in anti-nationalist thoughts from a lot of college students, meaning that officers, let's talk about the objective or the objective of this conversation. Officer Tatum said, what has the Democratic Party done for black people? What policies have they done? What have they done to make us so loyal to them? Because statistically, we are extremely loyal to them. You rebuttal this by bringing up some strange law of physics, and then you eventually wander into, what about the other countries that we're stealing from them? That statement alone is anti-nationalist, because he's talking about African Americans, and your answer to that is, what about other countries? You're not even worried about your own people right now, who are literally financially struggling relative to other races. This will be a perfect time to focus on your own people. What other time can you focus on your own people? And it's really ironic, considering you are an advocate of African Americans, but when you have a discussion about African Americans, one of the first things you bring up is another country. Who does that? You should be focused on your people right now, the same way he's focused on his people. And you bring up another country, how we're stealing from them. Do you know that America funds some of the most GDP? I mean, America creates some of the largest GDPs for other nations just based off of our tourism. We do that. That's not stealing. But you have such a negative and cynical view of the country. And even when it comes to talking about your own people, you don't talk about your own people. You're talking about how we're stealing from other nations in a conversation about African Americans. But let's continue.
Because how did we get here?
Well, I'm not African.
I'm not saying you.
I'm Caribbean. You see my flag.
Well, they should be mad.
I'm Trinidadian.
You should be mad at the Africans.
I ain't mad at nobody.
Well, okay.
I don't hold grudges. That's the problem that we got, because we got narratives that are being pushed for us to be mad, and then we don't know where to take our anger off, because first of all, we have emotional intelligence. We're not emotionally intelligent. Yeah. So there's nowhere for us to go for us to even be able to express ourselves, or to even know how to express ourselves. So we take it out on each other, and that's the problem. That's where we at right now.
But see, you have the problem, and you also have the solution. It's to reverse the things that you're saying. So how about when you're on campus, how do you treat your brothers and sisters? How do you treat white people? That's going to be what makes it different.
I'm a beacon of light, and I stand with God, one
Perfect.
and only.
Everybody
know that.
Then you continue to do that, and you'll be a light to other people. Everybody here on campus, the way that you make a change is you being the change yourself. It's the same thing with God. I won't come here with a Bible in my hand and hit y'all over the head with it. You got to live a lifestyle. When you live a lifestyle that people believe is good and moral, people begin to wonder, what are you doing? What are you a part of? And the same thing happens in anything else in your life. The faith, oh, she's still back. I thought I prayed her away. You still, as individuals, should look in the mirror and say, I am an individual living in America.
Okay, I think so far this is a pretty productive conversation. There are a few things I need to look into myself, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. It's LFR Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.